Hey there, guys. Dragon Master here, and I want to welcome you to Star Wars and Earth, Episode 22, Code Name Return of the Terrans. So, I really have only one thing to say, and that I'm sorry this video is a little late. I've been sort of busy these past week, basically, with the holidays coming up, and by the time this video releases, it'll be close to midnight, I'm pretty sure. Well, getting close to midnight before the 25th, I guess, starts. So that's really all I have to say. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. We start our journey off with Shepard and the rebels who have just arrived at Zakul, and they're currently meeting with the Anderson, Hackett, and Fran. They have just entered the meeting room, and Shepard is happy but also annoyed and angry that they weren't told that they were still alive, as many soldiers had been depressed back, basically, with all his troops had been depressed ever since they heard about Earth and believed their families were all dead. But Anderson and Fran along with Hackett, told them that they couldn't contact Shepard and his forces because they didn't know if the Empire would be listening, and if they were able to locate where the transmission was coming from, then the Empire would be able to find Zakul and then come and destroy them once and for all. Shepard already knew this was probably the case and had told all of his forces when he first heard about this to tell them that their people are still alive, and the reason he suspected why they couldn't contact them. Most understood, but the last bit of people were still angry and didn't understand why, but they at least understood and were happy that their people were alive. So Shepard would just hug them all, while the Republic representative, well, the rebels representatives, that the Rebel Alliance said would be Mon Mothma, and she would be happy to see the Terrans, along with Admiral Akbar, and the meeting would begin. That Hackett and Anderson and Fran would tell them that for the past, ever since the fall of Earth had happened, they had been living here, and they were willing to work with the rebels to destroy the second Death Star. And Akbar and Mothma were surprised the Terrans knew about this, but then they told them that they had spies who had informed them. Shepard also had his informants who were able to get intel on the second Death Star being built. So they all agreed that they should work together to destroy it. But Shepard suspected, since they were easily able to get this information with their informants, they believed that the Empire probably already knew that the rebels would come and might have a trap set up for them. So Hackett, Anderson, Fran, and Shepard, they would combine their forces, and they would basically attack the surface of Endor, while the rebels would attack the second Death Star. They would use their fleet to basically send a small group of soldiers along with the rebels to the surface of the planet to first take basically the shield generator down, while the Terran fleet would go with the rebels. Thrawn believed that the Death Star was operational, and that they were just lying about it not being not operational yet, to lure the rebels into one trap to destroy them once and for all. And with them out of the way, they could get to the Shepard's faction. So for the next couple of days, they plan how they're gonna go. Shepard moves all of his forces to Zakul, and those who still have family or those who still have friends alive that are on Zakul head down to the surface, while those who don't have anyone left stay. Those people that don't have anyone left are planning on doing suicide runs to basically do damage. Since they have no one left, they decide that they'll sacrifice themselves, so those who still have family left will be able to go home to their loved ones. Shepard feels proud, and Hackett and Anderson are also proud of these soldiers and say they're some of the most bravest men they've ever seen, while Thrawn respects them for this. He has contacted the Ascendancy and let them know they were still around. The Ascendancy had currently been hiding from the Empire, but were glad to hear that the Terrans were alive, and they were also willing to help with their plan by sending resources to Zakul. Franz thankful for this, and they continue to plan. Franz sends soldiers, well, a small group of soldiers, to aid Luke in rescuing Han, who will be on this team that is heading to Endor with them. The basic same would go on, but the Terran soldiers would arrive basically when Luke was about to be thrown in the Saxlar pit. They would crash into Jabba's. I don't know what it's called. I totally forget what the name is, but they would crash in and attack the people, while Jabba's forces, while Luke would get his lightsaber, and the rest would go down how it is with Boba Fett being eaten by the Saxlar, them saving Han, Leia, and everyone else, and they would head back to the Rebel ship. Han would be grateful and happy to see the Terrans were still alive, so would Leia, Luke, Chewie, and Lando. But the Terrans tell them they have to keep this secret, as not many rebels basically know about it. So the meeting would go down as they would explain, but Mon Mothma would also mention it might be a trap, so they have countermeasures in place. With the Terrans basically making the bulk of the fleet that would attack the second Death Star, half of the rebel ships would stay here. So the Terrans and the Rebel Alliance prepare. The team would be sent on a stolen Imperial shuttle, and the rest would go down how it is. But with the Terran soldiers, they would help them find Leia much faster and would still get captured by the Ewas. But when C-3PO would talk and they would think he was a god, the rest would go down how it is. The Terrans would think that the Ewoks could help them and decide to team up, and they asked C-3PO to convince them to help fight with them. With the Ewas agreeing to help them fight, the Terran forces, led by Shepard, who personally wants to get some revenge on the Empire and see the Emperor's death, decides to be the captain of this squad. While Luke is taken to the Emperor, Shepard already had a spy waiting to help him out. This spy would be dressed up as a stormtrooper, and when Luke was ready to fight the Emperor and his father, Darth Vader, which Shepard had recently found out when Luke told him, this spy would enter the room and help Luke fight against them, as this was a very skilled spy of theirs. And this spy's name is Caden. So the events would still go down, but when the Empire would reveal it was a trap, Shepard had already expected this, and when the Imperial stormtroopers surrounded them, the Ewoks would jump in and attack them. The Terrans would quickly blast the troops in front of them and would overpower the stormtroopers with the Ewoks' help. And they would take down the shields much faster. And as expected, when the fleet would arrive, they would already realize it was a trap, and the fight would go down just with the Terrans helping, and since they already knew it was a trap, they were much more prepared, so they wouldn't suffer as much losses. In the Death Star, Palpatine would be surprised to see that the Terrans were alive, Hackett, Anderson, Thrawn. He would be surprised and enraged to see that they were still alive and kicking. He would order his forces, well, basically to call in reinforcements to help him, as he was not expected this. But he would quickly shift his focus on Luke, but then the door would open and the soldier Caden would walk in. Palpatine was surprised to see this, but he ordered Vader to kill Caden, but Luke then grabbed his lightsaber from the Emperor and then tried to kill him, but Vader then engaged him and the two fought while Caden joined in to help Luke fight Vader. Caden had been studying under Shepard and was a good friend of his back before Earth was destroyed, and he had been serving as a spy for the Terrans while they were on Zakul. He used explosives along with traps he had set for Vader, and they worked, surprising Vader, because he was so focused on fighting Luke, he hadn't suspected this. but he was still able to fight through or throw the grenades away before they damaged his suit. But still, even with Caden there, Vader would still defeat Caden and force push him into a wall, knocking him out. And when Vader would talk about Leia, Luke would get all angry and then start trying to, well, basically get in more aggressive and fight Vader fiercely. Caden would quickly wake up and would see that Luke was starting to tempt him into the dark side with Palpatine laughing. Palpatine would mock Caden, saying that that the Terrans were finished, their colonies were destroyed, their precious Earth was destroyed, and their fleet was a formless shell of itself. But Caden would laugh, saying that they already knew Palpatine was a dark side user and that he was afraid of them, which surprised Palpatine, but then he realized why Caden hadn't engaged him was because he already knew he was a dark side user. This shocked Palpatine, but also asked how he figured it out. He explained that they had been spying on him since day one, which surprised Palpatine but also enraged him. Just then, before he could retort, Luke cut off Vader's hand and then would point his lightsaber at Vader. Caden would quickly tell Luke to stop, but Palpatine would force lightning him away and would attack him. Luke would see this and would turn his focus to Palpatine, who was laughing and cackling, telling him to give in to the dark side. But Luke would not and would try to attack him, but Palpatine would force lightning him and say, "What a waste," but would then force lightning both of them, nearly killing them. But just then Vader would, seeing his son being killed, he would, along with the Terran, and he remembered all his memories with the Terrans and how good friends they were and had tried to help him in the past. He decided that this time he would repay that favor and quickly grabbed Palpatine. And the scene would go all the way when Vader would throw Palpatine into the reactor shaft. The explosion would happen and Vader would collapse. Caden and Luke would quickly rush over to him. Caden would get a message saying that they were about to enter the Death Star to destroy it. Caden already knew that the Terrans would eventually break through the Imperial fleet and would then launch fighters in. His mission was to get Luke out of there quickly as possible. Luckily, with the Imperial forces, they were able to hold him off, buying him enough while the Imperial forces were still fighting fiercely and had not given up, letting them have enough time to get out. So they would both quickly run, carrying Vader with them, who Caden already knew was Luke's father, as Luke had told him when he was being escorted, as he was one of the Imperial stormtroopers who had brought him to Vader, and they had to quickly chat while the other trooper went to go repair his blaster as it had been sabotaged. As they made it to the shuttle, Vader would tell Luke he was proud of him and would ask him to remove his mask as he wanted to see his son's face. He would see him, and Kanan would be surprised to see Vader's face. It looked awful, but he also see that in those eyes he saw Anakin Skywalker, and he smiled and was saddened when Vader drew his last breath and died. They would quickly get on the Imperial shuttle and make it to the basically Endor, as the Terran fighters, along with the Rebel fighters, with Lando flying the Millennium Falcon, would destroy the Death Star's core, and then the whole station would explode. The Terrans would make it down to the surface along with the rebels and then head to the huts to celebrate. Caden would reunite with Shepard and all his friends as they all chatted by the fires. The commanders, along with Hackett, Anderson, Thrawn, and Udini was even there. Shepard, all his friends and companions, well, the ones who were still alive, were there, along with all the Terran soldiers, celebrating their victory over Palpatine's death, and also the Terrans who had mourned Darth Vader, who they knew was just a broken hero. Luke would then talk with Shepard, and also Luke had also told the Terrans, well, basically the Terran leadership, that Leia was his sister, and they would help her and her people, which the Terrans had luckily rescued from the planet that the Jedi were still on, as the Jedi currently had been hiding and growing with Mace Windu as their new leader. And when they told him that Mace was still alive, Luke was happy, and they told him that Mace would like to meet him. Luke asked them why Mace hadn't joined them, and Shepard told him, along with Hackett and Anderson, as he had been informed that the Force had told them that it wasn't time yet for the to join the galaxy. Since Luke was the last Jedi, it was up to him to fulfill the prophecy. Luke understood, but was still confused. Leia was happy to hear that her people were still alive and was excited to meet them and help build a new Alderaan. They would all look to the fire and see the Force ghost of Anakin, Obi-Wan, Yoda, even Qui-Gon Jinn, and Anakin, all looking at them with smiles. And Shepard, Hackett, Anderson, and Thrawn would look up into the stars and wonder what the future would hold for them now. So that is where we are going to leave it off. So I just have a few things to say, and that is after this episode, only 3 more to go until we finally finish the series. So really, I have nothing else to say other than I hope everyone has a good Christmas and a good holiday. Episode 23 will actually release in a couple of days, possibly 3 days at best, or 2, I don't know. So that's really all I have to say. So, I guess comment down below. Please subscribe to the channel, and thank you.